there's a really interesting conversation to be had around internal timing and external timing. And sometimes I think that there's an exploration around that, but I think that there's a really interesting I'm having an interesting contemplation and I want to share it with you guys and just to kind of see like how does this sit with you? Because as you know, I've been talking about what happens once we decondition. What happens when we really understand ourselves and we've done the work and we really we're really aligned with who we are. And that's an important exploration. I'm definitely not suggesting that you leapfrog that process. And I'm also saying be humble enough to say to yourself, even if you think you've done the work, that maybe sometimes the work still shows up because it does. That's all I'm going to say. But what if all this conversation in human design around waiting is really not about waiting, but about disengaging from all the busyness so that we can get reconnected with our own inner voice. It's tricky because I do think like if you're going to go start a business and push a product out into the world, that you want to gauge that the timing is right. But how do you know when that inner prompting shows up and it feels so right? And how many of you have had that experience? I know I have. It's like it happens in the shower always, right? It's like you get in the shower and then that voice is like, do this. And I'm like, Kristen, we have a new class we're going to be teaching, right? That's how that happens. I think that sometimes the waiting isn't about, oh, I'm waiting because I'm waiting for the invitation. It's about waiting because that pause in the process of beginning to know ourselves drops us into a state of being more deeply aligned with our own inner truth, our own higher voice, if you will, our own connection to source. And so I would say, or I would challenge you, if you feel like as you're manifesting generator, you really don't need an invitation. If you feel like this call that keeps saying, I really want to do this, I should be doing this, and you're like waiting for something to respond to. I mean, I'm not saying that it won't happen. You'll be standing in your kitchen one day and the phone will ring and you'll pick it up and it'll be like, oh, wrong number. And this voice will say, I know it's the wrong number, but I'm really feeling strongly that I should tell you, go to YouTube and record some channeled videos. And you'll be like, oh, okay. And now it's probably not going to happen that way. What I'm sensing is that you're getting this voice from your muse or your higher self or your creator is saying, hey, this is what I want you to do. You're obviously connected enough that you're channeling, right? You have this connection. People always ask, well, what if you get like something to respond to from your higher self? I don't want to break protocol completely and be like, follow it, because I've definitely followed things that I thought were my higher voice and ended up in really big doo-doo. I'm not going to lie. But, I also was a third line profile for a while as a sixth line. So there's a lot of stuff happening there. But I think that it's okay when you get those inner promptings to follow those. That it just feels like if it's getting you enough of a attention enough inside of you that it keeps gnawing on you and you bring it to class as a question, to me, that's not, oh, I'm going to go do this. Now I'm going to go do that. That's not flopping around and getting inspired by the world around you, in brief snippets because of somebody else's energy. That feels like a deep inner call. And where is it said that we're not supposed to follow those deep inner calls? I think that if we follow human design too much and strictly see it as this interface between you and the material world, we forget that interface is a feedback loop and it inspires more things in us. And it's not always going to be literal, like, oh, here's the next right step. It is oftentimes, but sometimes when we get that higher call, you can't ignore that. And I would like to encourage us all to continue to get reacquainted with the voice of that higher call and to allow ourselves to follow that call. If it feels, if it has that deep resonant piece of truth in your heart, when you feel it and you encounter it or you hear it, give yourself permission to try it. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Probably nothing.